Cool. So let's talk about your first project. It's called War, in parentheses, or Peace, depending on how you want to play the game. And the big picture goals of this project is that we want you to be able to follow interaction pattern. An interaction pattern is our specification about how this project should work, what it should look like. We're looking for strict adherence to this. Like the idea is that when you're on the job and you're given a set of instructions, do you decide to do what you feel it should be done, as opposed to what you're told to do? The answer to that question is you do what you're told. If you'd like to change in any way, reach out to us to ask for permission first. You're going to write readable code that adheres to Ruby convention, meaning that you're going to write idiomatic code. That is for what I like, the lack of a better term, I call standard Ruby. You're going to be writing tests to cover the software that you're writing. Inherently, untested code is broken code, and we're going to start talking about testing tomorrow. You are going to create an object-oriented solution to a problem, meaning that you're going to create the appropriate objects and classes and methods to kind of solve this problem that we're going to give you. You are going to make sure that your project is on GitHub, and you are going to make pull requests to this project. So in general, you're going to simulate a game of War. It's a card game. If you do not know how to play War, like there's a link in the project spec that it kind of explains how it works. And the idea is that to start with, broken this project up into manageable chunks for you. This is going to be something we do for this first project. As we get into further and further into this project, we'll be more hands-off, and like we will define less, and it'll be up to you, more up to you in your hands to define the appropriate objects. So if we go to the setup here, I forgot to ask, everyone see my screen okay? I also presume that you can hear me because someone probably would have said something if I was just had myself muted. Cool. So you're going to fork a repository, you're going to clone the fork to your computer, and you are going to make sure that you have forked it and did not clone it. That's the big setup for it. And we're going to go to the project requirements. We've broken this up into 4 iterations for you. Our expectations are that you complete iteration 3. Iteration 4 is what I would call for funsies. If you want to take things to that extra level. I would say, in general, for any project that we assign you, if you move on to iteration 4, you had better be certain that everything in iterations 1 through 3 is as good as you can make it. Like the idea here is we want to make sure that you have everything that you need to have under like secure and working properly. It's kind of like the idea is that we don't want the situation where you try to go for that iteration 4 and end up failing the project because we missed some like layering holes in the previous iterations. Does that make sense to everyone? Cool. So in addition to these iterations, we expect you to do the following. Each class should be well tested. Your code should be readable. You should be committing to GitHub on a regular basis. Personally, I may commit every single time I take a Pomodoro break. So like once every half hour-ish is when I commit, generally when I am code. I will admit that I'm sometimes not good at that. Like sometimes you get in this state where it's like you just cruising and you forget to take a break. But try to commit at regular intervals, especially when you kind of complete a major chunk of functionality. We want you to use a branching and pull request workflow. We'll go into that a little bit further. You should have an experience. So I believe you've done a little bit of that in module 0. Am I correct? A little bit? That's fine. We'll talk about that in greater detail. And there's a rubric, which we'll go into a little bit later. Like iteration 1, essentially here, we're giving you an interaction pattern. So like, hey, we expect you to require a card. When we instantiate a card, we expect the first argument to be the suit, the second argument to be value, to be like the kind of card it is, and then we have the value, the rank here. And then we have a deck class. And again, like this here should be the interaction pattern. And a good tip is that we want you to write your test to be very similar to how this interaction pattern defines things, how they happen. So essentially, the very first iteration, we're defining a deck and we're defining cards, and cards both kind of belong to a deck. Like a deck has many cards. In iteration 2, we introduced the idea of a player. A player has a deck, and a player is able to tell if they've won or lost the game. And then we also introduce a turn. And the turn is where the meat of logic happens, where we can determine like which player in a turn has either won or lost the game. And so forth. Iteration 3 is where it kind of all comes together. We're taking these disparate pieces. We have a card, we have a deck, we have a player, we have a turn. We are now wrapping it together and giving people the ability to play the game. When I say play the game, that's in very quotations. You're going to have two computer players that will play against each other until one of them wins. We have details there. I want to make sure we have time for questions. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to talk about the rubric. And these are the kind of the criteria for this project. I would meets expectations is where we expect you to be. Like missing one of these would make it a non-passing project. Missing two of these would make it a non-passing project. The idea is that we want functionality, we want Ruby mechanics, we want conventions, like you're doing indentation, spacing. The fact we want to make sure that you're testing. You can see like the descriptions about what's happening here. I would say that I think that out of these, the most important criteria are going to be the most important things are Ruby mechanics, Ruby conventions, and testing. Those are probably the things that are most important to me. Version control, like we can work on that. It's very easily working on. We just like set a timer and strap it to your hand, and whenever it goes off, you got to commit. You know, like that's easily fixable. Functionality. This is your first project, so I'm a little less concerned with functionality. In that, I think that as a group, we would rather see a really good project that maybe misses the last bits rather than something that was cobbled together that kind of hauls it across the line. I think that we want to see quality of the code is more important than functionality. That being said, you can't turn in just iteration 1 and be like, but it's really good. I'm like, well, yeah, but that's still like a third of the project, right? Like, let's say that if everything was really solid and you just almost finished iteration 3, I would be happy with that result. And I think that you should also be very happy that you wrote something well. I think that what we care about is not just that you haul something across the line, but it's done well. With that time, I would like to open it up for questions about the project. Don't everyone just start all rushing at once.
There were 2 questions in
Zach?
chat.
Yep. Like again, like please like use the raise hand feature. Like I'm not looking at chat while we're teaching. Like and on top of that, the questions disappear like as soon as this meeting ends. So like please stick that. Let's go with Zach. Can't hear you.
You can't hear me, can you? Can you hear me now?
No. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Right. There we go. So under version control, under exceptional in the rubric, it says make at least 3 pull requests. When and why would we be making more than 1 pull request?
So you're making a pull request usually when you're working on larger projects. This is for us just to kind of introduce you to the idea of pull request. As you're working on a project, you are never doing everything all at once, right? Like especially as projects go really large. So what I'll do is I'll work on a project is that as soon as I finish like a complete whole little bit of functionality, I would make a pull request for that, and I would have other people review it. And so that would be a potential where I'm making multiple pull requests because like I'm just not going to work on one thing in a project and do multiple things.
Got it. Thank you.
Cool. George?
Yeah. When you said done well, if you could just expand on that. I mean, are you talking about like hitting the like meets expectations that I just want to be clear on like
yeah. When I say done well, it's like I want to see that you're appropriately using Ruby mechanics appropriately. Like you're using data types, enumerables, flow control properly. Like you are indenting properly, using space properly. You're not using like your code is clean and neat. It flows well. It's not like you have methods. You just don't have one method and it's all in one file, like that nature.
and as a clarification to that, things like comments that I've made for myself, would you expect those to be deleted or their pry lines to
There
be
should,
deleted?
yeah. So like what is on your main branch in GitHub should be considered your best work. There should be no unnecessary comments. There should not be debuggers like pry in there. It should be clean and ready to go. Like imagine that anyone looking at your work should be able to look at your main branch and be like, yep, this is what we're doing. Like this is where we are. Like this is the best work possible. Jose?
Yes, when it comes to the testing, before Turing, I learned both R spec as well as mini test. I was just asking which one are we going to be using?
Mini test.
Mini test? All right.
Mini test in module 1. Yep. Cool. Will?
Yeah, I'm sorry, and you may have said this, and I just missed it. But so if we finish, say, like iteration 1 or 2 or 3 or something, and we submit it to you, will you give us feedback before the deadline of Sunday, or will we just put a little request out there and hope?
You have to. They build upon each other. We'll be evaluating only the final product.
Okay. If we get stuck at a point, do you recommend we just work? It sounds like this is individual, so we shouldn't reach out to other students. Just work with you guys.
No, like the idea is that like you have your code help channel. If you are get stuck at a point, like like ask questions in there. And it is collaborative. Like the learning environment here is collaborative. Like you are, like you are to help each other out there. Like this is what learning is. But there is a line between collaboration and like academic integrity, and we'll be talking specifically about to kind of like really sum things up real quick. Academic integrity is the idea that like any code that goes in your thing, you should understand completely 100% of what's happening. Let's just do Hannah and Jake, and we'll wrap this up as you have another session to go to. Hannah?
Yeah, I just had a question about when it was due. Apparently on the calendar, it says that it's due Sunday night at 6, and then someone else had found a Monday morning at 8. So
it is Sunday night at 6. Yeah, the idea is that we want you to have a good night's sleep coming into Monday to start a new week. You're not going to get anything really productive done at nighttime on Sunday. Like that's just not going to happen. Let's just not, like no code written after 10 p.m. is ever any good. So like let's just make sure you're good to go going forward.
Thanks.
Yep. Was there another question?
I had my hand up. That was my question though. So.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. If you could point out to me where it says Sunday, that is not correct. I would like to fix that.
It's on the assignment tracker. When you go to week 2, it says Sunday. Let's see, at like 8 a.m.
Okay.
Looks like it
we'll
disappeared.
fix that.
Okay.
Okay. Done.
All right.
Cool. All right. You are all set. We'll get recording these classes up for you. And you're off to your next session. The link's in the calendar. Goodbye.